Hello everyone, welcome to Learn with Wasim. This is Muhammad Wasim Khan, an instructor of your project planning and management course. As you know that in the previous couple of lectures we have discussed a very important chapter, that is the project schedule management. And in that particular chapter we have discussed some important processes that are required for the development of project schedule model. So today we are going to start another lesson, that is lesson number 7, and we call it the project cost management. In the preparation of this lesson, materials have been taken from different online sources in the shape of books, website, research papers, and presentations, etc. However, the author does not have any intention to make any benefit of these in his or her own name. This lecture is prepared and delivered only for educational purposes and is not intended to infringe upon the copyrighted material. Resources have been acknowledged where applicable. The views expressed are presenters alone and do not necessarily represent actual authors or the institution. So let's start with the project cost management. The lesson plan includes the 4 important project management cost processes, project cost management processes that include plan cost management. Then we will discuss how to estimate the cost for a particular project or different activities in a project. We will discuss how to determine the budget and how to control the cost. So in this particular lecture, we will discuss the first 2, that is plan cost management and estimate cost processes. So let's talk about the project cost management first. Project cost management includes all the processes that are involved in planning, in estimating, in budgeting, financing, funding, managing, and controlling the cost. So in project cost management, we perform different processes, that is planning the cost, estimating the cost, budgeting, and financing, then funding, managing, and controlling the cost of different activities of a project. So project cost management processes are, as we have discussed in the previous slide, that is plan cost management, estimate costs, determine budget, and control costs. On some projects, especially those of smaller scope, and cost estimating and cost budgeting are tightly linked and can be viewed as a single process. Plan cost management is a process that establishes the policies, procedures, and documentation that are required for planning, managing, expending, and controlling the project costs. And the key benefits of this process is that it provides guidance and direction on how the project cost will be managed throughout the project. So obviously, if you want to determine the cost, if you want to manage the cost, then you need to have some guidance and direction. And that guidance and direction is usually provided by the plan cost management or the cost plan. The cost management processes and their associated tools and techniques are documented in the cost management plan. The cost management plan is a component of the project management plan. So as you know that in the project integration management chapter, we have discussed that project management plan is actually a combination of the subsidiary plans that include the schedule plan, the control, the quality plan, the cost plan. Okay, so that's why we can say that cost management plan is a component of the project management plan. Plan cost management include different inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. The inputs include the project management plan, project charter, enterprise environmental factors, and organizational process assets. So we have discussed these inputs in the previous chapters again and again. We are not going to discuss these inputs again here. So let's move toward the tools and techniques. The tools and techniques include the expert judgment, analytical techniques, and meetings. As you know that in expert judgment include the different experts from different areas or specialties, and they sit and they take decisions. They review different criteria, different points, different problems, and make decisions about those particular problems. And in meetings, the project teams may hold planning meetings to develop the cost management plan. In analytical techniques, you know, developing the cost management plan may involve choosing strategic options to fund a project such as self-funding, funding with equity, or funding with debt. The cost management plan may also detail ways to finance the project resources such as making, the purchasing, renting, and leasing. So for these different processes, we use some analytical techniques, and we have discussed some analytical techniques previously, and some of them will be discussed in the coming lectures. The output is the cost management plan. This is what we need at the end of plan cost management process. We need the cost management plan. And cost management plan is actually a component of the project management plan, or it is a subsidiary plan and component of the project management plan, and describes how the project cost will be planned, structured, and controlled. The cost management processes and their associated tools and techniques are documented in the cost management plan. So some of the different documents or things that are included in the cost management plan are here in front of you. That is the units of measure. What should be the unit in which we are doing some statistics or measurements? Then the level of precision, how precise, how precisely we are going to perform different techniques. Excuse me. The level of accuracy, that is how accurate our processes are. Control the thresholds, the limits, rules of performance measurement, and reporting formats. So these are some of the examples, some of the components that are included in the cost management plan. The next one is estimate costs. Estimate cost is the process of developing an approximation of the monetary resources that are needed to complete the project activities. So obviously, as we need to complete the project activities, but obviously, if you want to complete the project activities and project, then you need some resources. And those resources include the monetary resources. Because if you want to complete the project activities, you will have to complete it with having some monetary resources. Okay, so it includes the identification and consideration of costing alternative to initiate and complete the project. Cost trade-offs and risk must be considered, such as make versus buy versus lease, and the sharing of resources in order to achieve optimal cost for the project. So while estimating different costs for different activities of the project, we need to consider the cost trade-offs, we need to consider the risks while we estimate the cost for different activities. Because these cost trade-offs or risk may affect your different activities or costing. Cost estimates are generally expressed in units of some currency, that is in Pakistani rupees or US or Australian dollars or euros, etc. In some instances, other units of measure such as staff hours or staff days are also used. So the main theme of this particular slide is that obviously, as you know, we have in the previous lecture, as we have, estimate the schedule, the starting and ending dates or timings for every activity. And at the end, we have identified the total duration of the project. Similarly, we have to identify the cost. We have to estimate the cost for each and every activity. And then at the end, we will have the overall budget and cost that are needed for a particular project. The accuracy of the project estimates will increase as the project progresses through the project life cycle. So as the project progresses through the project life cycle, then the project estimates accuracy will increase. A project in the initiation phase could have a rough order of the magnitude estimate in the range of plus minus 50%. So the order of magnitude estimate is usually in the initiation or the starting phase of the project is in the range of plus minus 50. But as the project progresses, this value increases. So later in the project, as more information is shown, estimates could narrow to plus minus 10%. So costs are estimated for all resources that will be charged to the project: labor, materials, equipment, services, and facilities, as well as special categories such as inflation, allowance, and contingency costs. So these are the costs that are estimated for all resources that will be charged to the project. Then we have some inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs in the estimate cost process. The input includes the scope baseline, that includes the scope statement, work breakdown structure, and work breakdown structure dictionary, as we have discussed earlier in the scope management plan or in the scope management chapter. Then we have another input, that is project schedule, and schedule activity resources and their respective durations are used as key input to this particular process. Then we need the human resource plan. The project staffing attributes, personal rates, and related rewards and recognition are necessary components for developing the project cost estimate. So this is all about the human resources, their attributes, their rates, and the rewards and recognitions. So all of these things are very important for developing the project cost estimates. Then another one is the risk register. As you know that in risk register, we will have to identify the different risks and the responses to those particular risks. The risk register should be reviewed to consider risk mitigation costs. Risks, which can be either threats or opportunities, typically have an impact on both activity and overall project costs. So you should remember that in the early classes, we have discussed that risk can either be a positive risk or it can be negative. So the positive risks are called opportunities and the negative risks are called threats. Okay. So enterprise environmental factors, we are not going to discuss enterprise environmental factors and organization consequences again, because we have already discussed it in the previous lectures. Then let's move toward the tools and techniques, and the tools and technique include expert judgment. So expert judgment provides valuable insight about the environment and information from prior similar projects. Expert judgment can also be used to determine whether to combine methods of estimating and how to reconcile differences between them. So again, we have discussed expert judgment many times. Let's talk about the analogous estimating. So as you know, in the project schedule management chapter, we have discussed different techniques that include the analogous estimating technique. So analogous cost estimating uses the values of parameter from a previous similar project as the basis for estimating. So in an analogous estimating technique, we actually consider the similar previous projects and we take the data from those particular past projects and we make decision based on that particular data. So when estimating cost, this technique relies on the actual cost of previous and similar projects. Analogous cost estimating is frequently used to estimate a parameter when there is a limited amount of detailed information about the project. Analogous cost estimator is generally less costly and time consuming, but it is also generally less accurate. So analogous estimation is a process in which we actually make decisions for the future project based on the data from the similar past projects. Okay, so that's why we can say it is less costly and less time consuming, but it is less accurate as well, because you know with the passage of time the conditions changes. Okay, so due to the change in conditions we can have the change in the data as well. So in this particular technique we just focus on the previous past projects, and based on those projects we make decisions. Then we have the parametric estimation. And as you know that we have already discussed in the schedule management chapter, parameter estimating uses a statistical relationship between historical data and other variables. For example, the square footage in construction to calculate an estimate for the activity parameters. And we have discussed this example in that particular chapter. So in parametric estimation, we actually take the historical data from the similar previous past projects, but we do some statistical calculations as well. Okay, and this technique can produce higher levels of accuracy depending upon the sophistication and underlying data built into the model. Parametric cost estimates can be applied to a total project or to segments of a project in conjunction with other estimating methods. So in parametric estimation technique, we actually focus on the historical data from the past similar project, but we do some calculations as well by considering some uncertainties. So that's why its accuracy is better than the analogous estimation technique. Excuse me. Then we have another estimation technique, that is the bottom-up estimation. In bottom-up estimation, it is actually a method of estimating a component of work. The cost of individual work packages or activities is estimated with the greatest level of specific detail. So the detailed cost is then summarized or rolled up to higher levels. In a bottom-up estimation technique, what we actually do is we actually estimate the cost of the control accounts and work packages from, by moving from the least, or the smallest activities toward the control account in the work breakdown structure. So I'll try to explain it in Urdu as well. इस पर्टिकुलर टेक्निक में हम एक्टिविटीज यानी वर्क ब्रेकडाउन स्ट्रक्चर में जो नीचे एक्टिविटीज है वहां से हम कैलकुलेशन कॉस्टिंग की स्टार्ट करते हैं और ऊपर आते 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 हम कंट्रोल अकाउंट्स और फिर जो वर्क पैकेज या प्रोजेक्ट है वहां तक पहुंच जाते हैं. तो दैट्स व्हाई इसको हम रोल अप टेक्निक कहते हैं. और इस रोल अप टेक्निक में हम क्या करते हैं या बॉटम अप टेक्निक में हम क्या करते हैं कि फ्रॉम द बॉटम हम कैलकुलेशन स्टार्ट करते हैं, यानी स्मॉलर एक्टिविटी से स्टार्ट करके हम कैलकुलेशन करके आगे जो है टॉप तक प्रोजेक्ट की कॉस्ट एस्टिमेशन जो है वो कर देते हैं. Then we have another estimate, and again this technique was discussed in the project schedule management chapter, but I'll try to just go through this technique in this particular slide. So, 3-point estimate. The accuracy of the cost estimates can be improved by considering the estimation uncertainty and risk. So, in this particular technique, we consider the uncertainty and risk. That's why we can improve the cost in estimation of different activities and projects further. So, this concept is originated from the PERT, that is Program Evaluation and Review Technique. We have also discussed the PERT technique in project schedule management. PERT uses three different time estimates, that is the most likely time, the optimistic time, and the pessimistic time. So most likely is actually the activity cost based on, sorry, here we are not going to discuss time, we are going to discuss the cost. We will discuss time in schedule management. So in cost, we will discuss most likely cost. We will say most optimistic cost. We will say it's a pessimistic cost. Okay. And in schedule management, we will say, we used to say that most likely time, optimistic time, and pessimistic time. So as you know, here we are discussing the cost. So that's why we call it the most likely cost, optimistic cost, and pessimistic cost. So most likely cost is actually the activity cost, which is based on the realistic effort assessment. The activity cost based on analysis of the best scenario, that is called optimistic cost. Excuse me. And a pessimistic cost is the activity cost that is based on the analysis of the worst case scenario. So I'll try to discuss it in Urdu again. 3-point estimate जिस तरह हमने schedule management पढ़ा था, वहाँ पे हमने time के लिए पढ़ा था कि 3-point estimates जो है अगर time के लिए जो था वो हमारे पास most likely time या optimistic time या pessimistic time था. यहाँ पे चूंकि हम cost की estimation कर रहे हैं, time की नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो इसलिए हम कहते हैं कि PERT जो है 3 different estimate use कर रहा है cost के लिए, जिसमें एक most likely cost है, उसमें एक optimistic cost और एक pessimistic cost है. तो मोस्ट लाइकली कॉस्ट यानी वो कॉस्ट है जो कि रियलिस्टिक एफर्ट्स जो है उसको कंसीडर करें, यानी जो रियल एनवायरनमेंट है, रियल कंडीशन में जो आप काम करते हैं, तो उसके लिए जो कॉस्ट यूज होता है या चाहिए उसको मोस्ट लाइकली कॉस्ट कहते हैं. लेकिन अगर बेस्ट केस सिनेरियो है जहाँ पे कोई भी अनसर्टिनिटी नहीं है, कोई भी रिस्क नहीं है, कोई भी प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, तो उसको हम ऑप्टिमिस्टिक कॉस्ट और पेसिमिस्टिक कॉस्ट जो है हम उस केस को कहते हैं कि या उस एक्टिविटी कॉस्ट को कि जहां पे आप कहते हैं कि कंडीशंस बहुत ही वर्स्ट है, बहुत ही खराब कंडीशंस, जहां पे आपको एक्टिविटीज जो एक्टिविटीज बहुत ही जिसे कहते हैं खराब कंडीशंस में हो रही हो, तो उसके लिए जो कॉस्ट फिर चाहिए वो पेसिमिस्टिक कॉस्ट चाहिए. तो जो मोस्ट लाइकली कॉस्ट है वो नॉर्मल यानी एवरेज कॉस्ट हमें चाहिए होता है. ऑप्टिमिस्टिक कॉस्ट बहुत कम होगा. फॉर एग्जांपल अगर एक बिल्डिंग हम कंस्ट्रक्ट कर रहे हैं और उसकी लिए जो है फॉर एग्जांपल जस्ट कंसीडर इट एज एन एग्जांपल, अगर उसके लिए हमें मोस्ट लाइकली कॉस्ट चाहिए होगा तो फॉर एग्जांपल हमें 20 लाख चाहिए, ठीक है, 2 मिलियन. लेकिन अगर ऑप्टिमिस्टिक केस में देखें कि जहां पे कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, कोई बिजली की लोड शेडिंग नहीं है, मटेरियल सब कुछ टाइम पे सप्लाई हो रहा है, एवरीथिंग इज परफेक्ट, तो फिर हम उसको कहेंगे कि यार ये हम 10 लाख में या 1 मिलियन में ये प्रोजेक्ट हम कंप्लीट कर सकते हैं. लेकिन अगर आप कहते हैं कि कंडीशन बहुत खराब है, बारिशें भी हो रही है, इसके अलावा लोड शेडिंग भी ज़्यादा है, इसके अलावा जो मटेरियल है, कंस्ट्रक्शन मटेरियल, वो टाइम पे नहीं सप्लाई हो रहा, ठीक है, अनअवेलेबल होता है ज़्यादातर, ह्यूमन रिसोर्स जो है वो इजीली अवेलेबल नहीं होता, तो फिर उसको हम पेसिमिस्टिक टाइम कॉस्ट कहेंगे और फिर वो कॉस्ट ज़्यादा होगा. यानी वो जो कॉस्ट होगा शायद वो 30 लाख तक या 30 लाख या 3 मिलियन तक होगा। ठीक है, तो अगर इस बेस पे आप जो है जिस तरह हम एक्सपेक्टेड टाइम फाइंड आउट करते थे, इसी तरह हम यहाँ पे एक्सपेक्टेड कॉस्ट फॉर एक्टिविटी फाइंड करते हैं, विच इज एक्चुअली इक्वल टू द ऑप्टिमिस्टिक कॉस्ट प्लस 4 टाइम्स मोस्ट लाइकली कॉस्ट प्लस पेसिमिस्टिक कॉस्ट डिवाइड बाय 6। ठीक है, तो ये जो इससे जो हमारे पास टाइम आएगा ये ज्यादा एक्यूरेट टाइम होगा, क्योंकि हमने इसमें तीनों कंडीशन जो है रियल, पेसिमिस्टिक और ऑप्टिमिस्टिक तीनों कंडीशन हमने यहाँ पे कंसीडर की है। Then let's move toward the reserve analysis. And cost estimates may include contingency reserve, that is sometimes called contingency allowances, to account for cost uncertainty. And the contingency reserve may be a percentage of estimated cost, a fixed number, or may be developed by using quantitative analysis methods. So contingency reserves are actually considered while estimating the cost for different activities and projects. And contingency reserve are actually those reserves that are considered based on the identified risks. So यहाँ पे हमने जो है एक्टिविटी के बारे में या प्रोजेक्ट के बारे में डिफरेंट रिस्क को आइडेंटिफाई किया होता है, बस सिर्फ ये पता नहीं होता कि ये रिस्क कब हम फेस करने वाले हैं। तो उन रिस्क के बेस पे भी कॉस्ट जो है हम थोड़ा सा रिजर्व रखते हैं कि अगर इस तरह के रिस्क या इस तरह की बैड कंडीशन जो है वो आई, तो उस केस में हम फिर इतना ये वाला जो एक्स्ट्रा कॉस्ट है उसको हम उसमें यूज कर सकते हैं। ठीक है, और ये परसेंटेज में भी हो सकता है, ठीक है, फिक्स नंबर में भी हो सकता है, ये तो डिपेंड करता है ऑन द प्रोजेक्ट एक्टिविटीज। Then we have the cost of quality. It is the assumption about the cost of quality may be used to prepare the activity cost estimate. So yes, we can take some assumptions about the cost of quality, and we consider the cost of quality while estimating the cost as well. ठीक है, तो क्वालिटी से रिलेटेड कॉस्ट भी हम उसमें जो है ऐड करते हैं, दैट इज द फेलोअर कॉस्ट हो या चाहे डिफेक्टिव कॉस्ट हो, ठीक है, या मेंटेनेंस कॉस्ट हो, तो वी एक्चुअली estimate those costs as well. We have the project management estimating softwares as well. So project management cost estimating software applications, computerized spreadsheets, simulation and statistical tools are becoming more widely accepted to access with cost estimating. So nowadays we use the different software like the different softwares for estimating the cost. And these software actually have made it easy for the project team to calculate or estimate the cost of different activities and the projects. So vendor bid analysis, okay, this analysis again important. The cost estimated methods may include analysis of what the project should cost based on the responsive bids from qualified vendors, where the projects are awarded to a vendor under competitive processes. So where the projects are awarded to a vendor under competitive processes, additional cost estimating work can be required of the project team to examine the price of individual deliverables and to derive a cost that supports the final total project cost. So the vendor bid analysis is also इम्पोर्टेंट कि जिससे हमें पता चलता है कि जो प्रोजेक्ट है उसका कॉस्ट क्या होगा, और वो बिट्स पे डिपेंड करता है। आई होप कि आप बिट्स जानते होंगे, आप हर रोज अखबार वगैरह में भी देखते हैं, न्यूज़पेपर्स वगैरह में बिट्स का। सो प्रोजेक्ट जो है उसको एक वेंडर को जो है अवार्ड किया जाता है कॉम्पिटिटिव प्रोसेसेस की अंडर, और उसमें डिफरेंट क्राइटेरिया के बेस पे जो है एक वेंडर जो है उसको सेलेक्ट किया जाता है। Then we have some outputs that include activity cost estimates. So obviously this is what we need from the estimate cost management process. Okay, that is, we should have the cost estimates for each and every activity of the project. So activity cost estimates are quantitative assessments of the probable costs that are required to complete the project. For activity cost estimates mean that is the costs that are estimated for each and every activities that are needed to be completed. Basis of estimates, additional details that are supporting the cost estimate. The supporting documentation should provide a clear and complete understanding of how the cost estimate was derived. Supporting details for activity cost estimates may include documentation of the basis of the estimate, that is how it was developed, assumptions made, and the known constraints. So indication of the range of possible estimate, for example, 10,000 plus minus 10%. Okay, let me discuss it here. Basis of estimates mean कि आपके पास जो कॉस्ट एस्टिमेट जब आप करते हैं तो उसकी जो एडिशनल डिटेल्स हो कि आपने ये कॉस्ट किस तरह एस्टिमेट किए, क्या प्रोसेस आपने परफॉर्म किए, ठीक है, ये जो आपके पास कॉस्ट आपके पास डिराइव हुआ, ये किस तरह डिराइव हुआ, उसकी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन करना कि आपने कौन से एजम्पशंस लिए थे कॉस्ट एस्टिमेट के दौरान, क्या कंस्ट्रेंट्स आपने कंसिडर किए थे, ठीक है। तो ये जो है आप के पास बेसिस ऑफ एस्टिमेट्स होते हैं। और इसके अलावा जो रेंज है वो हम किस तरह रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं कि फॉर एग्जांपल 10,000 रुपीज हैं, तो अगर आप उसके साथ प्लस माइनस रिजर्व वगैरह लगाते हैं तो आप प्लस माइनस 10% लगा लेते हैं कि प्लस यानी 10,000 प्लस 10% या 10,000 माइनस 10%, वो तो डिपेंड करता है कि आपने किस तरह एस्टिमेशन की है। Then the project document updates. Obviously, you need to update the project documents. Okay. Till now we have discussed what is the process of the estimating cost and what are the inputs and tools and techniques and outputs. We have discussed the analogous and parametric estimation, the bottom-up estimation. We have discussed the three-point estimation. In the coming lecture, we will discuss how to determine the budget. We will discuss its inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs as well. So that's the end of today's lecture. Inshallah, in the coming lecture, we will continue this chapter and we will finish this chapter as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.